Hi and welcome to the Outquisitions podcast, where we spotlight industry leaders redefining success. The goal of each episode of the podcast is to uncover their stories, their strategies, and insights to inspire, inform, and really elevate your own journey. So let's dive into today's conversation with yet another super inspiring guest. If you want to listen to a really interesting talk, then stay tuned. Hey Ron, thanks for joining the podcast. So it's a pleasure to have you today. We had a quick chat before this podcast. You told me a bit about your story, how you came from, how you launched your company. And yeah, please introduce yourself. How did you arrive in Spain, in London, and how did you launch your company?
Excellent. No, thank you, Patsy. And first of all, thank you guys for having me. Yeah, my name is Juan. I'm the CEO and one of the founders at Finboot. Finboot is a technology company working on the green supply chain management space. So what that essentially means is we help industrial manufacturers in sectors like oil and gas, chemicals, and steel with some of their traceability challenges, right? So basically helping them demonstrate that any product that is low carbon, circular, or renewable, that they are gathering the supply chain data, the production data to back up those claims, right? Whether that's a sustainable fuel, a circular packaging solution, or a green steel, that they have the information that truly demonstrates, again, the environmental sustainability characteristics or traits of those products. Bit about me, as you say, kind of that journey, right? So I'm joining today from Barcelona. So this is one of my usual bases, let's say. I'm actually originally from Venezuela, grew up there. I moved to Barcelona in 2011. Initially was coming here for only a year and a half. It was the intended span initially, and then I never left. Right, so it's an incredible city to live in, to grow in, and it became a great place for me to launch my own venture. Right, as we started Finboot. I'm an engineer by training. I have background kind of in engineering, and then I went on to do a PhD in physics. But I've always been kind of very focused on building, designing, and scaling up technology-enabled products and finding ways in which we bring those products into industrial ecosystems. I used to do that in the hardware space with environmental biosensing solutions. And then I moved on to the software space as we kind of developed and grow Finboot in this green supply chain space. As you mentioned, Barcelona is in a way not my only home. We're actually a UK opco, so we're headquartered in the UK with a strong base of operations here in Spain. So I move a lot between those two ecosystems, and of course anywhere else that my customers need us to be.
Right, it's interesting. So you mentioned, yeah, you're from Venezuela, Barcelona then, and you said that it was a great city to launch a business, to run a company. Why is it?
I think there's a few reasons, and also very important to kind of say that the last 10 years,
Right.
when it comes to the startup or kind of the tech scene in Barcelona, it has grown and changed tremendously, right? So one of the kind of benefits that Barcelona has is that as a city, is and has been, I think, going on over 3 decades now, a very attractive city. I mean, it's certainly a hotspot for tourism, right? And it's just a nice place. There's nice weather. There's kind of like a general nice vibe to it. And particularly what kind of changed in the tech scene over the past decade is you started to see a significant growth in the number of, again, entrepreneurs like myself that were launching out their ventures, right? So that became more common, where perhaps maybe 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't really kind of the normal kind of path, let's say, that locals would take. And we also started to kind of gain a lot of attraction from foreign companies that were coming over and scaling up their teams here. So technology businesses like, for instance, in the neo-banking space, things like Revolut or N26, they started opening up bases of operations here. And I think all of that kind of mixture of, hey, foreign tech businesses growing in Barcelona, local tech businesses kind of being born in Barcelona, that has created a very interesting and a very dynamic ecosystem here locally, which we've been able to benefit from as well, and hopefully to
Mhm.
add as well to it a little bit.
Yeah. Right. And how would you compare building a business in Barcelona and now, from what I understand, you are scaling, being based in London mainly.
Yeah. Kind of. So
Mhm.
we've always had that dual identity in a way, right? Because from the moment we launched the company, we had a presence in London, a presence in Barcelona.
Okay.
That was mainly because of the makeup of the founders. So two of the
Mhm.
founders were here, and our third founder and our chairman was in London, right? So honestly, it of course brings some complexities, right? You're a really small, kind of tiny company starting up, and you do that from day one in two jurisdictions with two offices with kind of remote teams by default, right? And this back in 2017, where perhaps it wasn't then as usual as it is today. So it does come with certain complexities, but it also gives us or gave us a huge opportunity that we continue to kind of reap the benefits of to kind of gain the best of both worlds, right? So again,
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons why London is an interesting space for startups. It's a much more matured and perhaps grown up ecosystem when it comes to the tech scene. But that also means it's a lot more competitive, a lot more expensive to kind of to build your operations there, right? It can
Mhm.
become very, very difficult, right? So uh, having that kind of London anchor and then growing the business in an ecosystem that, as I said, it was kind of in that earlier path to in that booming phase in a way, that was of a particular benefit for us, right? And then ultimately, again, through this journey, things like Brexit have occurred, right? And that gave us a sense of tranquility in the sense that, oh well, actually, when it was coming up, we started discussing with our advisors and so on, and it was like, well, we have a UK base of operations, we already have an EU base of operations, so this is going to happen with very minimum impact for us, which was actually the case, and which could have been a bit more complex if that had not been the way that we were kind of organized, right? So
Yeah.
it really opened up a number of opportunities for us to kind of balance the best of two worlds.
Uh, Right. Interesting. Super interesting. So, yeah. Now I'd like to learn a bit more about your story, your personal story. How did you end up building a business? Because it's not really common. You're from Venezuela, Barcelona, building a business with two other founders you mentioned. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm really curious to learn more about it.
Uh, I think the Venezuelan element does have uh, at least a little bit of a reason for it, right? I think we do have that entrepreneurial, or maybe it might be the immigrant part of it, right? You come into a new country, you're trying to make your own kind of thing, find your own space, right? So that interest, let's say, to hey, I want to build something, and I think came, I don't know if with either the Venezuelan or the immigrant part of me, or maybe a combination of the two, right? And actually, one of the three co-founders is an old friend of mine.
Mhm.
We graduated high school together, right? So we grew up together. Ended up both of us in Barcelona, and actually the origin story of what Finboot is today happens at a why not a Clásico football match between Barcelona and Real Madrid. Uh, us to watching the game, having a couple of beers, and then again, we've been discussing or entertaining the idea of what kind of our next professional step was going to be, and and I was starting to be connected to the local tech scene and tech ecosystem again, primarily from my experience as a PhD student, working
Uh,
very closely with the industry, right, in the role that I had in my research, and and we kind of came to the conclusion that actually, look, we might as well try it, right? So it was a sense of I think we had it in us, that interest, that drive to build something, and I think part of the uncertainty was, well, I mean, maybe we tried, it doesn't work, what happens next? But then
mhm.
to us was like, well, only one way to find out, right? In a
Yeah.
way, right? We then were tremendously lucky to connect with our third co-founder, who's the one that sits in London, um, who had kind of additional entrepreneurial experience. So this is actually his third business. So again,
And
he became almost like a mentor to us at the beginning. And when we decided to, okay, now we're actually going to move forward, do this officially, we then asked him to, hey, be part of that founding team, and let's make sure that you come on board from day one. And that happened again. 7 years, yeah, 7 years have gone past, and I think it certainly was the right decision.
wow, and what was your vision launching the company? Because you mentioned that, from what I understood, you like challenge. Like you said, only one way to find out. Let's do it. But what was your vision? Did you have a specific vision within your current industry,
We
or was it more for the challenge, the entrepreneurial challenge?
Yeah, no. So we did have an initial vision, which has also significantly moved or evolved from where
Yeah.
it was, and I think it was part of the reason for that is because we were tech founders, right? So we were kind of engineers jumping into this. So we started our venture with a strong tech focus, right? And that actually was a benefit in many ways, right? So the underlying technology to what we do is blockchain, right? So we're using blockchain applied to supply chain, applied to industrial ecosystems. So really kind of bringing it into different or through a different lens of what it's typically seen. And when we started, this was, well, actually our main goal was to enable the use of blockchain in enterprise and industrial ecosystems, right? To demystify the complexity of the technology and actually convert it into something that you can plug into legacy systems, you can use through web applications, you can simplify the way in which a non-technical person is gonna kind of take a benefit or is going to be able to use and interact a very complex emerging technology, right? So that was the initial um, drive, and that continues to be the essence of our technology. But then what happened through our journey was we started to get more specific in terms of what the commercial benefit of this, like what the business case actually was, right? Okay, blockchain for business, blockchain for industry, but which industries, which products, which segments, right? And with the kind of innate or inherent benefit of blockchain in terms of transparency, auditability, basically secure record keeping and shared record keeping as well, supply chain very quickly became the killer app, right? So, and I think we've seen that, right? When it comes to business applications, supply chain was, and I believe continues to be the killer app for this technology, for blockchain technology. And and so then that took us into supply chain, right? And then a mixture of our own interests and our own kind of expectation for the future and what we were seeing the market demanding is what led us into the sustainability space, right? So again, we were working a lot in industrial ecosystems like oil and gas, chemicals, and steel, very capital intensive industry segments that are going through an intense energy transition. And that meant introducing new products, circular, renewable, low carbon products. Those products, they needed to gather the evidence so that they comply with existing and incoming regulation. They needed to gather the evidence so that they could avoid, again, any reputational damage to enter into kind of greenwashing claims or anything. It's like that, and transparency is very important in these industry segments, right? So that's kind of how the journey evolved, right? So from being very much tech founders into then adapting more or concentrating more on what the business and commercial impact of our venture was going to be.
Mm, great. Look, you mentioned something really interesting. So you knew you're one of the two co-founders that you have since you were a kid or a teenager at least,
Yes.
and you met another one, the third one, that was your mentor at the beginning, kind of your mentor. Um, how do you have mentors actually right now? Do you
Uh,
have
uh,
other mentors?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think um, yeah, I think I'm always been very fond of, well, actually, people have done this journey before, people have succeeded, and this is not something that you can carry out on your own, right? So we've
No.
always been very open to any experienced leader that can help us through this journey, that can add again that value that experience brings with, have always been welcome. And we actually have again not only independent board members that are helping with the governance of the organization, but we also have an additional advisory board group
Mhm.
that essentially help us in specific areas, right? So it could be again an advisor that is helping us with go-to-market. Others are helping us with maybe some more technical elements. Others maybe helping us with industry-specific elements, because we work in a very very particular industry. So we've always been very open to bring in and to find ways that, of course, work for them as well, but to find ways in which we can bring in very talented, experienced people in that sort of mentor or advisory capacity, which I think it's necessary for the success of a growing tech business.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are talking to lots of different CEOs and founders in this podcast, and most of them mentioned the same, that yeah, mentors are super important.
Yeah.
That's a key to the business growth. And actually, we observe the same thing ourselves. And that this is super interesting that you mentioned this. And one last question about all these mentors part of the business. How did you find your first mentor? So I guess what the third founder. How did you meet him?
Well, actually, that was pretty random, that one in particular, because friend of mine actually met him while they were on holiday in Vietnam. So
Okay.
that meet was very coincidental or kind of random. Or I think we were lucky to then connect to that way. He knew we were working on blockchain. He connected us, and then we started the conversation. Right. So that was completely yeah. I think one of these random events that
Yeah.
really pay off. Right. Uh, the next advisors or the kind of the group of people that are now helping us to this journey was kind of more targeted, right? So at that
Mhm.
point, we were more like, okay, we know we need people in a specific area. So we have again, Avanish Sahai is one of our key advisors, who's an ex-Google, ex-SAP, ex-McKinsey guy who again grew the partners and ecosystem platforms of those organizations, and then um, we were able to connect to him basically through networking, right? So someone we were already working with presented Avanish to us, and then it's all about getting them excited about what we're doing, right? So another key advisor is Patman Ramankuti, who's serial entrepreneur who has kind of built and sold two businesses in the supply chain space. And someone else we met through basically our extended network, right? And being
Yep.
able to connect. And I think, look, it's often said, right, like the importance of networking and so on, but actually building those relationships and keeping them for long, it can be very valuable and very helpful to what we're doing here, right? And ultimately, what we've seen, which perhaps I was a bit more wary of at the beginning, was
Mhm.
well, actually, how are you going to convince them? Why are they going to work with you? Why are they going to be interested in what we're doing? And what happens is these type of profiles, well, they typically are, right? They're very much open and motivated to work in and helping a younger generation, right? So the profile exists out there. There's a lot of people that want to help, and we've certainly been very lucky to find a few of them.
Yeah. And do you have mentees? Are you a mentor yourself?
So
Yeah.
not as strongly as maybe I would want it to be. So I do help again friends or older people that I've met through the ecosystem that are perhaps at a slightly earlier stage than I am. And
Mhm.
again, I'm a very talkative person, as you've seen, and very open. So I'm always happy to lend a hand if I'm asking to, as I said at the beginning, kind of tell my story, because I feel like my experience is good and in a way have helped others. So yes, not too formally, and the reason being because like I'm still very busy on getting Finboot to the state that we want it to be. I think it's definitely in the cards, right? So I would like to kind of expand that role from my end as kind of the business gets to a position that I've got a couple more hours a week to then invest in that part of my role.
Great, interesting. Yeah, this is super interesting to see that you have this learning mindset, growth mindset, because you're open to have mentors to learn from other people, and this makes me wonder, like, so you are building a team, you have a team already, but I guess you're expanding.
Yeah.
And I know that usually it's a big challenge for companies to hire the right people, to just find the right people that
Yeah.
fit the role. And we are actually hiring ourselves. So this is the challenge that we are facing right now. And talking about having the growth mindset, learning mindset, do you think it's something that is innate, or do you think that is something you can teach? Being curious, just
Yeah.
looking for mentors and so on.
So in our experience, I think it's definitely something that you can teach. I presume there's certain basic traits that the profiles must have in order to say have the basic essence that is going to help them learn those skills, but and also taking it from what has worked best in our own team, in our existing team. It's like it's growing um, our people. Right? So they come in and they have the right set of skills to begin with, right? But then we help grow them in the specific context that we require, right? Because what happens is, again, we're working with an emerging technology in an emerging space like sustainability, and in very traditional industries like oil and gas, chemicals, and steel, right? So uh, that combination of elements, some very new, some very agile, and others very traditional with a long track history, finding that right balance, finding that right way to operate and develop what's needed for that ecosystem. It's not easy. It's not something that has been done several times on and on again. So that's why I think in our case, growing talent used to be a much more efficient approach. But again, you grow the right talent, right? So there's always that complexity of then identifying the right people to bring on board, right? And actually, in that sense, I learned from another colleague not long ago that his position was like he's always hiring, right? It's like it doesn't matter if I'm growing the team or not. I go to a conference, I'm always looking at people in kind of in any ecosystem that I'm developing. I'm looking at and identifying, oh, this might be a good fit. This might be a target. Not what we need right now, but let's kind of put a pin on that and see when the time is right, if there's an opportunity there. And I think that for entrepreneurs has to be the one of the tools to execute is to have that kind of always hiring mentality and a radar on almost to see and track the people that fit not only from a skill base but also from kind of like a culture element to the type of organization that we are building.
Yeah, so you have this vision, right? You are driven, like you mentioned. Again, mentioning your story, you are driven. You have this vision with your company and so on. In the same way, do you think you can teach someone to have a vision? Like you can teach them having the right mindset? Do you think you can create leaders within your company, or do you think being a leader and having this vision is more innate?
No, I at least definitely think you can create it, right? So I
Yeah.
think, and I think in a way I've seen it, and I think of myself as well. Like I don't think necessarily my leadership skills or capacity were innate. I see myself today, and I remember myself from when we started, and I'm a much more capable, driven, and apt leader today than I was when we started this journey, right? So I think um, it's always the mix, right? You gotta have the will, right? The person really wants to has to have that want, right? Of, well, I actually want to play that role. I actually want to be that leader. I actually want to be that mentor. So that there is an element there, but I think it's probably 10% innate and 90% is just hard work and getting it, learning the right elements.
Yeah, great. Yeah, interesting. And yeah, so talking about teams, building team, finding the right talents. Um, you are obviously based in Barcelona and in London also. Did you find any challenges having one team in two different places to cooperate, create a vision, share the vision with the member of the team? Did you find this challenging?
I mean, there's an element to that. It is challenging in some ways. I don't think necessarily the geographic uh, remote element of it is what makes it more complex. And it's always challenging to kind of build that cultural element in a growing organization, right? And um, I think to us, we kind of separated into two groups. Our technology group works on a remote first basis, right? So
Okay.
there's several reasons for that. One, again, they are comfortable and very efficient in that way. It also gives the company an opportunity to expand the sourcing of talent, right? Because you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
basically limited to a particular office or a particular region. Um, and that has worked very well. Again, very multicultural team, few nationalities in that group, working remote every day, very efficiently, very productive. So I think that has worked. I think on the commercial side of the organization, anything that has to do with sales and marketing, I think those continue to be, at least in our space, which is kind of enterprise facing, right? So
Yeah.
the face to face, the in person, that continues to be very important, right? So while
Okay.
there's flexibility, and of course there's an element of remote work on what we do, in my commercial team, I'm always saying we have to go see the clients, we have to go see the prospect. We got to get in front of people. We have to go to conferences. That in person element, I think it's still very very important in the type of sales and in the commercial space that we move in.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So yeah, like I mentioned, I'm really interested about all this because we are also building a team right now in different locations. And yeah, having you here is really it puts perspective because I have all kind of answers, especially regarding recruiting,
Yeah.
leaders, innate or not, and so on and so on. So yeah, it's really puts perspective on it. And I was wondering like um, regarding more the future of your company. So you mentioned that you're really innovative in a sense, but you operate in all industries, oil and other kind of industries. Um, so yeah, I was wondering, how do you see the future of your company, especially with AI?
Yeah, I think look, the near future, let's say, to us is all kind of commercially focused, right? You say we have a solution that has the right place in the market. There's appetite for it. So we just got to capitalize on that and make sure that we continue to penetrate our key industry segments, right? The role of AI there is of us as a user of the technology to enable us to succeed in this space, right? So it's finding the the right tools or the right elements that are of course making our efforts more efficient and are helping us succeed in those short-term goals, right? And of course there you have things on Gen AI that have tremendously transformed the way we do marketing, we do content generation, we do even preparation for meetings, right? It's brought
Yeah.
incredible efficiencies there. All of those tools have now become basically part of our sales and marketing tech stack, right? So that's the element in the short term, in the near term. Long term, of course, AI becomes part of what we need to think of in terms of our product roadmap, right? So there, we already see kind of some fits and overlaps with where both AI from kind of a predictive model type of space could help enhance some of the functionalities that we have, and we also see how we could bring some elements of Gen AI to improve or expand the user experience of particularly the configuration element of our solution and make that kind of more let's say seamless for the users, right? So more long term, what we see is there's actually an AI strategy very tied or very closely knit to our product roadmap. Um, while in the short term, we see us leveraging the AI tools that can help us bring more efficiency and more success to those immediate goals.
Look, asking you this question make me wonder of another thing. So we are talking about the future, but I actually have a question about the past. So you are an innovative company and you're evolving into all industries. Was it hard for you to take market share into all industries, having these innovative ideas?
I think, I mean, it was hard, not because of the innovative ideas, because actually
Okay.
these organizations are super open and they know they need to bring in technology. Like, I mean, they've seen the risks and the cost of being too slow to adopt new technologies. So actually something that was very positive is that actually getting the door open is not as difficult, right? Because people are interested to learn what we do and where we might fit. But getting from that to actually establishing a commercial relationship, that's the tough part, right? That's the journey, and I think that's where you go from being an interesting tech company to being a relevant tech company with a solution that, well, actually, yes, this solves my problem, right? And that's always what we kind of go into our mindset, or have built into our mindset, is, hey, yes, we get doors open because we're interesting and people want to speak with us. But once we get that door open, we have to very quickly demonstrate that we're not just interesting, that we are relevant and that we can solve real problems that they have right now and that are costing them money right now. And that's what really kind of smooths that process into, well, actually, I'm not just having this conversation because I want to hear about tech. I'm having this conversation because this can have a meaningful impact in my business and in my operation, and it can help me answer some of the main challenges that we have as an organization, right? So get very complex, but it's just because of the nature of doing business or these complex sales processes.
And what do you think was your main asset to break this barrier between being innovative and being interesting to being really relevant to these companies?
I think getting that early success, so with those initial customers, is key, because that's what's going to help you build the relevance, right? So understanding, okay, you managed to get that first 1, 2, 3 key case studies that's where the technology fits. Then you have to build the argument around that to say, okay, this is why this makes sense, and it's horizontal across this industrial segment, across this space, across this geographic region, right? So, like, to get from interesting to relevant, the first case studies, the first customers, they are key to it, right? Because you're going to build the rest of your story based on the success of those early accounts.
And what are the next steps for your success? What is the vision, the 5-year vision?
So look, continue to grow, right? And especially, again, right now it's commercially focused, right? So we have to make sure that we continue to expand. That's the priority right now. We will continue to focus in our core industry, so these capital intensive segments, but there's a huge market opportunity there. So we just gotta make sure that we expand that market share, right? And given where things are in terms of how digital and sustainability are both such top priorities for enterprises across the board, I think I'm optimistic about our chances, right? Because we have the relevance and we're in the right space. But now we just gotta execute, right? Get our heads down and grow. As I said, particularly in our commercial efforts, that's what's gonna fuel then the investment in our own kind of R&D to bring our product into its own next generation, right? So hopefully, we'll be having this conversation in a year's time, in 18 months' time, and I can tell you about the success that we've seen in that growth.
Sure, will be great. Will be super great. Look, Juan, before hopping off the podcast, so you mentioned that, yeah, obviously you believe in the powers of having mentors, of having knowledge from other person, advice. Right now, if I don't know if it's the case, but if someone has kind of your profile, more tech side of the business, and is hesitating whether they have to launch a business or not, what will be your advice from running a company for years, having this tech profile?
I think, look, I think there's a fate element in this, right? And ultimately, at some point, you gotta take a leap of faith, as they say, right? And like
Yeah,
my uneducated advice in the sense of I don't know who this person would be is just do it, right? It's just go for it. My perhaps more settled down and advice would be, hey, I'd be happy to have a chat, right? If anyone kind of has concerns or anything, hey, knock on my door. LinkedIn would be that door primarily, but I'd be more than happy to have a conversation and to help in whichever way I can.
great, super great. So yeah, Juan, thanks a lot. Before hopping off, so if it's a mentee, future mentee, or future maybe client, how can people find you?
So as I said, LinkedIn is my base of operations in more than one way. So if you find me on LinkedIn, I'm always open to connect there and have meaningful conversations. And you can also reach out to Finboot in general to our website finboot.com. And yeah, and always again happy to have that door open for interesting conversations, which hopefully turn into. Sorry, I'll say that again. So for um, happy to have that conversation again for interesting conversations that hopefully turn into relevant opportunities.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Juan. I really enjoyed the discussion, and yeah, see you maybe in a year to have a point of all these projects.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks, Juan.